before Alan Keane decides to sort of leave us for his other pursuits, I'd like to ask Jane to really, on behalf of all of us, to place our situation before Mr. Keane. Thank you, Jane.
Well, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak, and your dear wife does have a letter from me in the post, so she's got my signature on a document, and I'm sure she'll be reading it with great interest. But I just wanted to spend a few minutes tonight just explaining that I can see a lot of people here who are from various traditions, some that I don't know what your background may be. But really, we have come to a point in time where, as professional herbalists from various traditions, we have Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine represented here, and I think I've seen Brian sliding in, so I think we have Tibetan medicine represented. And really, whatever our different traditions that we're working from, and whatever our past background, we have a common purpose here tonight. And the purpose is really to protect our access to our traditional medicines. And there has been a huge amount of work done, both by the Department of Health and by the various practitioner associations, over 10 years now worth of, and I know as a politician you know how tedious sometimes committee work can be. Well, we've sat through committees and we've sat through working groups and we've produced reports, and all of the work that has been done has been tremendous steps forward really in terms of recognising the standards of training that we as practitioners in our various traditions have achieved. And I don't think there's any real serious concern by anybody in any realm of the public life who would argue that statutory regulation is not a good thing for protecting the public and helping the public to recognise properly qualified practitioners. But the real issue is around about the date of April 2011. And April 2011 sees a cut-off point really that we can't ignore, and that we really do have to push, if you like, or press our representatives to work to that date. Because at the end of April 2011, we have a conjuncture between two pieces of work that have been done on the one hand by the Department of Health, and on the other hand, medicines work that has been done by the MHRA. And these two strands, if you like, of work meet at that point. And at that point, we need to be able to guarantee that all the practitioners from all the various traditions that we see gathered in this room are able to continue to access the full range of their traditional medicines. Well, just to backtrack then to that point in time that we were discussing of April 2011. Hello. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. We just very briefly were introducing the subject of the problem of accessing our medicines, and really at the end of April, when the THMPD becomes fully implemented, practitioners of all these different traditions that are in this room will potentially lose access to any medicines that are made up by a third party. Now that has a huge impact, a massive impact, both for our colleagues in TCM, for our colleagues in Ayurveda, for our colleagues in Tibetan medicine, and for those of us in the Western tradition. Huge swathes of our medicine can just disappear. And that clearly is not in anybody's interests. Obviously, we're concerned as practitioners, but our patients even more so, because our patients are relying upon these medicines, and in some cases have relied on these traditions, whole families, whole generations that are living in this country. It is their way of life that they use these medicines and access these traditional remedies. So it's not something to be taken lightly, and it really is a deadline that I'm sure your wife will be well aware of by now. But it's not something that we can afford to ignore, and that's why we see this as a starting process of us making our feelings felt to our representatives here in the House of Commons, so that we can actually motivate people to realise that it isn't something we can delay any longer. There has been 10 years of work gone into this process. At every stage of that process, the government, the Department of Health, has consistently said that they are going to go ahead with a statutory register of herbal medicine and traditional medicine systems. The tone of the current consultation, which I have a copy of here, which is a considerable document, makes it plain that they are now considering not moving forward with registration. And if that happens, there is no register, there is nobody that can access those medicines, because the European directive that governs this matter says that only authorised healthcare professionals will be able to access these medicines. And unless we're on a register, we don't count as an authorised healthcare professional. In fact, at that point, you could just as easily claim to be a herbalist as I could. And clearly, you know, I've trained for 4 years, 5 years, I've practised for 10. There is no way of differentiating at that point whether we are a bona fide herbalist or not. So we need that register, and if there's one message I wish to convey to everybody here tonight, is that we must press our representatives most firmly and very politely to make sure that that register is implemented in time for us to continue uninterrupted practice with full access to all our traditional medicines. And that's my message really for all of us here this evening. Thank you for listening to me.